I'm Nancy Showalter, and you're listening to Spirituality for the Politically Incorrect podcast. Welcome, all radical paradigm shifters and creative change makers. You who dare to create a better life and a better world. Tap into the power that resides within you and use that power for constructive change. Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's episode. We have a very exciting topic that we're discussing today with Dr. Dean Shrock, author of Why Love Heals and Doctor's Orders Go Fishing. Dr. Shrock served as director of mind-body medicine for a physician's management group of 40 cancer patients, or 40 cancer centers, where he developed and researched a wellness program teaching thousands of cancer patients and their families. He was writing prescriptions for patients to go fishing. And as a result of his research and what he was doing, he found that his patients were living much longer than those getting only conventional medical treatment. But I'll let Dr. Shrock tell us about his research as to why this happened. Dr. Shrock, welcome. We are all waiting to hear all about Why Love Heals.
Well, thank you, Nancy. Thank you for inviting me to join you today.
Well, this is an exciting topic, and as I said, so maybe you can pick up where I just left off and tell us how you became interested in Why Love Heals.
Well, as you noted, it was related to the research I did in working with these cancer patients and having taught a wellness program where the emphasis was trying to engage them in life and teaching a will to live. And I had the fortunate experience to train early on with Dr. Carl Simonton, who many people may know as the oncologist who encouraged people to imagine their immune systems gobbling up cancer cells as part of their treatment. And my doctoral dissertation happened to be on guided imagery. Anyhow, in working with Carl, I was very much interested in his program that was much more about teaching people about taking their lives in a direction of great joy, much more than guided imagery. That was simply a tool to help them bring more joy in their life. So when I was in the position then, hired as director of mind-body medicine to develop all psychological services for cancer patients and their families, I adopted Carl's work along with work I had done prior in a self-help program. And the huge surprise was in teaching them to create a better balance in their lives between doing for others and taking care of themselves, really looking at their own interests and needs and values, is that they found this too selfish, Nancy. They simply couldn't do it. So when, after looking back after 4 to 7 years of people who had gone through my program, we found that people simply could not do what we were asking them to do. Not that they didn't adopt some of this lifestyle, but I couldn't comfortably then conclude that it was their lifestyle or their will to live that was what was causing them to live longer. And that's when I learned and was allowed by the editors of the journal who wanted to publish my research to make a clinical comment. And what I had discovered in going around to all these cancer centers and getting feedback is that what really helped patients most, as they told me, was that I listened and I cared and I was sincere. And that really threw me. It wasn't then any specific coping skill I taught them about stress management, guided image, or whatever. It was that they felt loved and cared for, which was so similar to Dean Ornish's conclusion with heart disease. Because initially when I was concluding that love heals, love was the healing agent, why they really lived longer. As a scientist, I'm sure you can appreciate, it may sound nice, but I joke, go try to explain that to an oncologist for the most part. So that's when I was encouraged and determined, really, to investigate why love really could heal. And that led to my book, and I think some pretty good insights into why love really could heal.
And wonderful. So how would you define love?
Well, in a word, I would say oneness, but it'd be like I'm leaving out a whole lot of other information, how I got to that point. But certainly love would incorporate things like compassion and caring and even in the idea of harmonious action. Love is really an underlying force, a connective glue in the universe that interpenetrates and connects everything. It is a life force, energy with the qualities of harmony and order and compassion and joy and peace.
So you're really not just talking about love as just an emotion that we have toward one another. That's part of it, of course. But actually, you're defining it on a much higher level. It's an energy frequency that really, like you say, holds the universe together.
Right, right, and that was a pretty big leap for me as well, and discovery, because love, otherwise, as I think for many people, is an emotion, or we think of it maybe more in romantic terms, rather than the idea that love. However, we might even say God is love. Love is this underlying force of the entire universe. And it is one of complete harmony and order and compassion. It's remarkable that way. In fact, if there's one message I would love to leave with our audience today, it's learn to trust this field. It is absolutely in your interest. And however, people might even use the expression, let go, let God. And to express faith or to surrender to something like this is a huge step for most people. I don't care how much you know or understand. Life is difficult business. I even found myself saying at one point in my career, because I got into some very difficult stuff teaching people in the recovery from strokes and chronic pain, is that life stinks. Life really is difficult. So how then can you learn to trust something that otherwise appears to be negative and anything but having your interest at heart?
Well, I know that you turned to quantum physics, of course, in your scientific thrust toward finding out why love heals. So maybe you could tell us a little bit about that.
Okay. In fact, I want to give a good reference beyond my book, Why Love Heals. Lynn McTaggart is a journalist and an excellent researcher in her own right. And she was very helpful for me to make quantum physics more understandable or relatable. She wrote a couple of really good books, like the first one is The Field. And what she did was investigate and interview literally hundreds of physicists looking at what quantum physics really is. And it's an understanding that, as I was proposing earlier, but I'm going to say now more in terms of an electromagnetic field. But there is an electromagnetic field that underlies and interconnects everything. And I think it goes back to the early 1900s when Dr. Max Planck, who's pretty much considered a father of quantum mechanics or quantum physics, discovered that there was this electromagnetic energy that did underlie everything and connect everything. And then they were beginning to discover some of the qualities of that field. And it was one physicist in particular who really got my attention, a Dr. David Bohm, who literally called this an energy field of love. And that really got my attention. It really threw me, actually, initially. I thought, and it was part of a joke that even Dean Ornish proposed and I did in my writing, that scientists don't talk about love. Doctors don't talk about love. It's not comfortable. And especially when I was writing up my research, I was actually very aware and on purpose did not choose to use the word love in writing up my research. So it's interesting again for them, that is all of these early quantum physicists to talk about this remarkable quality of harmony and order and interconnection that underlies everything. And then it just as fascinating was for them to determine that consciousness creates, that at this smallest of small, when you break down from atomic matter to subatomic and get down to the quantum level, there's actually no form. It's only potential energy that only takes form when consciousness is introduced. And so it really got me to thinking about a lot of things. In fact, it helped me explain then why guided imagery works or why the placebo effect works. You are an extremely creative, powerful force as part of this quantum field expressing in form. You have the qualities that we would actually attribute to God, which sounds blasphemous on one level. But that's when I looked even further at that and found that literally every major philosophy and religion believes that we are one with God or one with everything. And that means then God expressing in form. We are one with God or one with this unbelievably loving, compassionate, creative force field.
Amazing, isn't it? It's quite
It
exciting,
is.
your research.
Yeah, to discover the power you have to create your life. If there's something to be grateful for, people often talk about gratitude and why it's such a positive thing. Well, the thing I'm most grateful for is this idea that I realize I can create my life.
Well, and for those who do follow the Bible and other world religions, as you said, those principles are just all throughout it. I mean, Jesus said the kingdom of heaven's within you. Don't go look here and there. So, we've been given so many. We're given dominion over the earth. So we are creative beings made in the image and likeness of God. And so it is a tremendously exciting thing when science can start to corroborate or maybe undergird some of these spiritual truths that we're all so familiar with.
Right. And it was one of the things that the early quantum physicists actually became very much aware and studied also some spiritual principles, trying to understand. And I guess maybe I don't want to overgeneralize this, but when you really try to think about something, whether it's scientifically or just to understand it, it's not so much trying to make a point as to truly understand it. And I think that you can't help but avoid this revelation that, oh my God, there's so much more going on, and that the scientific method is a method and not necessarily the ultimate or best way to determine truth, which is then where something like meditation comes in, and understanding the right and left brain hemispheres and how they know very different realities.
Well, you talk about being authentic. And is true happiness really about being authentic and doing what resonates with our essential nature that you're describing here and this quantum field?
Well, I believe that. In fact, as a psychologist, I would just say this as a human being in common sense, that when you are being yourself, that's when you're going to be most at ease, when you're not worried about being judged or criticized. You can just be yourself, be authentic, whatever that is. But at a deeper level, when in fact you are resonating with the qualities of this force field, then in fact, that's how I define self-love. It's aligning with the eternal truth of who you are. Yes, to me, it's the ultimate act of self-love, and then how to ensure your health and happiness.
So is this why you say to follow your true bliss and go fishing?
Well, I think that when Dr. Joseph Campbell was doing his wonderful work looking at fairy tales and myths and parables and the wisdom that underlied these fables, one of the most dominant messages he came up with was follow your bliss. And it so fits, the idea of what I call go fishing. Do what brings you the greatest joy and meaning in your life. And I think that that's a great way for people to perhaps come to a greater comfort about, well, what should I do with my life? Or what is the thing I can do to be happy and healthy? And in your heart, we may say more metaphorically, but there's a part of you, if you can learn to trust, will let you know what feels right. In fact, in all of the years I taught about a will to live and asking people to really look at what really mattered in their lives, I boiled it down to the idea that we're all looking for peace of mind. And then I thought, well, okay, so how do we get it? When do we have it? And at some point it occurred to me it's when we're going fishing. It's when we're really doing what we love, which, again, was so opposed to my working with all of these thousands of people who found it too selfish. So it was fascinating to me that the thing we want most, peace of mind, we're most likely to get when we're really doing what we love, and yet we've been so deeply conditioned to believe that that's selfish and inappropriate.
That is truly amazing, and it really, I think, reveals at the core of how we really need to learn who we really are and that power that does reside within us, and how to come into alignment with that. And the guilt is such an amazing thing. So how is going fishing, that form of self-love? And how do we transition from being conditioned to put others before ourselves, or just to nurture ourselves without guilt? I mean, it's such an amazing thing, as you just described.
Yeah, and I have to answer, not easily, honestly, Nancy. It's the conditioning is so strong that even if you have the awareness that you have the power to create your life, the conditioning that comes from childhood and a sense of I'm only feeling good when I'm pleasing others. However we learn we're not good enough and always trying to measure up and always trying to fit in. So I say that the reason why we find it so difficult to be unique and really be ourselves is because we've learned to think of love as conformity, as conforming to our families of origin and their beliefs and our communities and cultures. And that is so difficult to break free from. The blessing seems to be as we get older, and I say wiser, we can get into this kind of crone stage where I think we're more free to really reflect on our lives and open to a greater understanding of who we are. And that's the real value of meditation, is if people could really understand that they can learn to access this greater truth and wisdom. And it actually is a way then to transform these early conditioned beliefs around however we understand ourselves through our acculturation or through our physical senses.
Yes, obviously there are many different spiritual techniques, and of course meditation being one, to really contact that inner divine being or higher being, or the non-physical part of yourself, however you want to define it. So that, I think you hit on the key there about the beliefs, of being able to, first of all, recognize the beliefs and then let them go and replace them with another belief, so that we really can meet our very, highest potential of why we're here. I mean, everybody does have a reason. So what insights can you share with our listeners to help them find joy and this peace of mind, and which you believe is essential for our true wellness and wholeness?
Well, a couple of things come to mind. One is, honestly, it's going to take a commitment that people literally make time for themselves, whatever that means. Like when I had people list their interests and their needs and their values. Okay, and now make sure you're taking one of these and incorporating it into your life every day. So just like we made an appointment today to meet to do this interview, is to set aside time that you commit to like you would anything else in your day, like your job or whatever else, and make sure you're doing it. And hopefully you have a support system, whether it's a husband or wife or someone who's going to help you honor that, or friends, that you make that time for yourself. And in that process of going fishing, it also is transformative. You are allowing this life force, harmonious energy to now penetrate the resistance that has been formed through believing, no, I'm only okay if I look and act a certain way, versus, as far as I'm determined, this is all made up. Everything that we believe. If you know anything about anthropology, you know that what has been true today was absolutely not true back then, and so forth. Honest to goodness, when we understand that consciousness creates, I really believe this, Nancy. It's absolutely all made up. So who's to say I think the crazy thing is for someone to suggest they really have this all figured out.
Well, I think you bring up, the go fishing metaphor, to me also says, or what I've found too, is going out into nature. Like you say, just being one with, nature, experiencing nature. To me, that helps us really connect with our true nature and release all the stresses and thoughts and things, that go on in our day-to-day lives. And so many people, I find, don't do that because they're just too busy going to work, doing this, doing that, and don't take that time. I mean, whether it's with yourself or with your family or whatever, but it is a great healing force to give us greater insight and feel that inspiration that can come to us when we relax and we attune with nature. And I find that so valuable. Did that come up in your research at all?
It did, Nancy, and I believe strongly what you just said. As far as I can determine, nature is the purest form of love. Remember, everything comes from this quantum field or something much deeper, but whatever creates this field of harmony and order. And when we are, in fact, let me digress and maybe use an example that might help make this make sense. At some point in our education, we had this demonstrated where we would have a piece of cardboard, and underneath this cardboard would be a magnet. And then we're going to sprinkle iron filings on top of the cardboard. And now what's going to happen to the iron filings? They're going to take the shape and form of the magnetic field, right? Okay. So if that helps, that's what I think happens when we go into nature. That nature is this pure field of love and harmony and order. And it's like you go into nature and you get this tune-up. Your molecules get realigned. I really believe that happens. And we now have a term now in psychology called environmental psychology, where we know that people can literally feel better as a result of exposures to nature or even pictures of nature.
That's a great analogy with the magnet, and I actually feel that. And of course, you may be familiar too with this concept of grounding, where it's so healing to put our feet on the bare ground rather than always have our rubber tennis shoes on or whatever we have. That we do receive those currents from the earth, and it's very healing also to every part of our being.
Right, that makes perfect sense to me.
That's wonderful. Well, tell us, you have a free gift, a couple of free gifts for our listeners. Can you tell us about those?
Yes, thank you. If people would go to my website, which they can see on the screen, www.deanshrock.com, they can get a 6-part e-course on Why Love Heals, and also a free guided imagery download titled Why Love Heals, a guided imagery exercise to experience Why Love Heals, and I'm very glad to share that.
Well, and thank you so much for offering that. I think that would be so beneficial, and I just love your research, and I love all that has come forth from it, because it's so easy, as you say, how do you talk to an oncologist about love? It's so easy to say, oh yes, love, that's some fairy-airy new age thing, but in reality it is undergirded by our science, and I do know that not all scientists even recognize quantum physics, which is quite amazing when you think about changing a paradigm or changing our beliefs. So it's been a very exciting talk with you, Dr. Shrock, and we're so happy that you're with us here today.
Well, thank you, Nancy.
And I'd like to thank all of our listeners for being with us, and please go to the website, get your free gifts. I think it would be wonderful. So we'll see you next time.
Until then, keep an open mind, a generous heart, and a powerful spirit. Thank you for being with me today, and if you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, download, and comment. I'd love to hear from you, and your support is much appreciated. And don't forget, go to nancyshowalter.com to get your free electronic copy of my book, It's Okay to Be Rich, The Entrepreneur's Guide to Increased Wealth and Personal Mastery, endorsed by T. Harv Eker, and my free mini course, How to Speak Your Success, the shocking truth of how your words impact achieving your goals. I'll see you next week.